Now to the cackling witch herself, Joy Behar from The View, whose jealousy is something to behold.
I think she's probably been put in there because according to Donald Trump, she's a 10. You know that's what it is.
I want to be. Here is Joy objectifying the White House press secretary, saying she only has the job.
The sudden and unexpected departure of The View's longtime co-host, Joy Behar, has sent ripples through the media industry. Fans, critics, and even her fellow panelists were caught off guard by the shocking announcement. Behar, renowned for her sharp wit, unfiltered takes, and unwavering opinions, has been no stranger to controversy throughout her tenure. However, this time, it seems the backlash was too overwhelming to ignore. ABC has chosen to remain tight-lipped regarding the official reason for Behar's abrupt exit. Still, speculation is running wild, with rumors swirling about a defamation lawsuit filed against her by Karoline Leavitt, Donald Trump's press secretary. While Behar has long been a controversial figure, this particular legal battle may have been the final straw, leaving ABC executives with little choice but to take drastic action. The controversy ignited after a particularly scathing remark Behar made during a live segment on The View. In an exchange that quickly gained traction online, she suggested that Leavitt was not chosen for her position based on her credentials, but rather because of her physical appearance, a comment that many found not only offensive but deeply hypocritical. I think she's probably been put in there because, according to Donald Trump, she's a 10. You know, that's what it is, Behar remarked, with a tone that left little room for misinterpretation. The reaction was swift and unforgiving. The air in the studio turned tense, as even her co-hosts, who are no strangers to her often brash statements, appeared visibly uncomfortable. The real firestorm, however, erupted beyond the studio walls. Social media platforms were flooded with outrage, as critics slammed Behar for the very behavior she has spent years condemning, reducing a woman's achievements solely to her looks. As the backlash intensified, calls for accountability grew louder. The irony of Behar, a self-proclaimed advocate for women's rights, making such a remark did not go unnoticed. Even some of her most devoted followers struggled to justify her words, leading many to speculate that this controversy would be impossible to recover from. And now, with ABC distancing itself and legal troubles looming, Behar's fate seems more uncertain than ever. The comment sent a wave of unease through the studio. The atmosphere grew heavy, and even Behar's co-hosts, despite their familiarity with her no-holds-barred approach, seemed unsettled. A brief, awkward silence followed before the discussion moved forward, but the damage had already been done. Beyond the confines of the studio, the real explosion happened online. Within minutes, the internet was ablaze with heated debates and scathing criticism. Social media platforms became a battleground, flooded with reactions from both supporters and detractors. Critics called out Behar for hypocrisy, accusing her of engaging in the very behavior she had spent years condemning. For a long time, Behar had been vocal about women's empowerment, frequently highlighting gender biases in politics and media. However, in an instant, she had seemingly contradicted her own principles by reducing a woman's career achievement to physical appearance. The irony was impossible to ignore, and the backlash was swift and unrelenting. Hashtags such as #CancelJoyBehar and #FireJoyBehar surged to the top of trending lists, with thousands of users calling for consequences. Even some of her longtime fans found it difficult to justify her remarks, struggling to defend someone they had previously admired for speaking truth to power. The disappointment was palpable, with many expressing frustration over what they perceived as a blatant double standard. Karoline Leavitt, the subject of Behar's comment, did not take the remark lightly. Rather than simply addressing it in a public statement, she opted for a more decisive course of action, taking the matter to court. In an unexpected yet calculated move, she filed a defamation lawsuit against Behar, alleging that the statement had caused irreparable harm to her professional reputation. Legal analysts quickly weighed in on the implications of the lawsuit, suggesting that this case could become a major test for defamation laws in media and entertainment. Unlike a typical exchange of political jabs, this situation carried potential legal consequences, as the claim suggested Behar had acted with malicious intent, deliberately attempting to discredit and diminish Leavitt's credibility. If the lawsuit proceeded, it could establish a new precedent for how media personalities are held accountable for public statements, especially in an era where controversial remarks can gain massive traction within moments. Would networks start enforcing stricter guidelines to avoid legal pitfalls, or would this be dismissed as another case of political drama?
She's probably been put in there because according to Donald Trump, she's a 10. You know that's what it is.
I want to be clear, though, it's not her first job. It was her first press briefing. She worked in the previous Trump administration.
Meanwhile, behind the scenes, ABC executives found themselves in a difficult position. Should they stand by one of their most prominent figures or distance themselves to protect the network from escalating fallout? The weight of the situation grew heavier with each passing day, and it became increasingly clear that the scandal was far from over. ABC executives suddenly found themselves in a crisis that demanded immediate action. The controversy surrounding Joy Behar's remarks had snowballed into a full-fledged media storm, and every move the network made would be scrutinized. If they chose to stand by Behar, they risked plunging into a long and costly legal battle that could tarnish the network's reputation. A high-profile defamation lawsuit would not only invite intense public and political backlash but could also discourage advertisers from associating with the show. The possibility of losing key sponsors was a risk ABC simply could not afford. On the other hand, if they distanced themselves from Behar, they would be removing one of The View's most provocative and headline-generating personalities. Her ability to spark debate had been a significant driver of the show's viewership and engagement for years. Cutting ties with her could lead to a decline in ratings, and replacing such a polarizing figure wouldn't be easy with the network. Caught in a delicate balancing act, emergency meetings were reportedly held behind closed doors. Executives weighed every possible response, from issuing a strongly worded apology statement to placing Behar on temporary suspension. However, one option stood out among the rest: letting her go entirely. The decision was not made lightly. Behar had been an integral part of The View's success, known for her fearless opinions and willingness to challenge authority. Her presence had brought both controversy and ratings, making her one of the most talked about figures on the show. Yet, this particular scandal was different. A defamation lawsuit isn't just another PR issue, it's a legal battle that could have serious financial and reputational consequences. With mounting pressure from advertisers, public backlash intensifying, and a lawsuit looming, ABC executives had no choice but to act swiftly. Ultimately, the network made a decisive move. Joy Behar had to go. ABC released a carefully crafted statement, claiming that Behar had decided to step away from The View. The wording was deliberately vague, avoiding any direct reference to the lawsuit or the controversy at hand. However, the public wasn't fooled. The timing was far too convenient, and speculation ran rampant. Many believed the exit was far from voluntary; rather, it was a strategic removal aimed at protecting the network from further fallout. The abrupt nature of the announcement only fueled questions and debate, leaving audiences to wonder whether Behar had crossed a line that even ABC could no longer ignore. As the dust settled, one thing became clear: this wasn't just the end of Behar's tenure on The View, it was the beginning of a larger conversation about accountability in media. The fallout from this controversy would linger, and the impact of ABC's decision would reshape the future of the show and its approach to outspoken hosts. As Behar's exit became official, the media erupted with divided opinions. Some celebrated the decision, arguing that she had repeatedly pushed boundaries without facing real consequences. To them, this was a long-overdue reckoning, a sign that even high-profile media personalities couldn't escape accountability. They pointed to past instances where Behar's blunt commentary had sparked outrage, suggesting that this final controversy was simply the tipping point. On the other side, defenders of Behar saw her departure as yet another example of cancel culture at work. They believed she was being unfairly targeted for expressing her views, just as she had done throughout her tenure on The View. To them, this wasn't about holding her accountable but rather silencing a strong, opinionated woman who had long been a voice of resistance against conservative figures. But the bigger debate remained: was this a justified consequence of her actions, or had ABC bowed to public pressure too quickly? With Behar gone, all eyes turned to The View. The show had just lost one of its most fiery and recognizable voices, a personality who had played a key role in its ability to spark national conversations. Without her, the network faced an uncertain future. The biggest question on everyone's mind was, who could fill the void left by Behar? Would ABC take a more cautious approach, selecting a new co-host who would bring less controversy and fewer risks? Or would they double down on Behar's brand of outspokenness, bringing in another strong personality to keep the debate-driven format alive? Behind the scenes, executives deliberated carefully. On one hand, replacing Behar with someone equally as controversial could keep ratings high, ensuring that The View remained a staple of daytime political discourse. However, the network also had to consider the risks. Another high-profile controversy could push advertisers and audiences even further away. Meanwhile, the lawsuit against ABC was far from settled. Karoline Leavitt's legal action remained a looming threat, and industry insiders speculated that ABC was working behind closed doors to resolve the case quietly. If the network could reach a settlement, they might be able to avoid prolonged media attention that would only keep Behar's remarks in the spotlight. But there was also another possibility: that Leavitt wouldn't back down. If she refused To settle, the case could turn into a defining moment for media accountability. It raised fundamental questions. Should talk show hosts be free to make inflammatory remarks without facing legal consequences? Or was this a turning point where networks would be forced to enforce stricter guidelines to prevent similar controversies? As ABC scrambled to protect its reputation, one thing was certain: Behar's exit wasn't just the end of an era for The View. It was the start of a larger industry-wide debate on the responsibilities of media personalities, the limits of free speech, and the ever-growing influence of public backlash in shaping the future of television. As debates raged on, Behar's silence became deafening. The usually outspoken host, known for her fiery takes and unapologetic opinions, had suddenly gone radio silent. This uncharacteristic restraint only fueled more speculation. Was she strategizing her next move, or was she choosing to step away to avoid further controversy? For years, Behar had built a reputation for being fearless in the face of backlash, never hesitating to address criticism head-on. But now, with a defamation lawsuit looming and her departure from The View making headlines, would she finally speak out to defend herself, or had the controversy reached a level where even she knew that staying quiet was the best option? Beyond Behar's personal choices, this situation had far-reaching implications for the media landscape. Was this controversy a warning sign for television networks? Would they start vetting their outspoken hosts more carefully, worried that one offhand remark could spiral into legal battles and PR disasters? Or would they continue prioritizing controversy, knowing that bold personalities often drive viewership and engagement? This wasn't just about Joy Behar anymore. This was about the future of media personalities. The lines between freedom of speech, accountability, and corporate interests had never been more blurred. If Behar's exit was a cautionary tale, it could lead to major shifts in how networks manage their most outspoken voices. Would this incident mark the end of the era of unfiltered commentary on mainstream talk shows, or would it set a precedent for stronger legal and ethical boundaries for television hosts? Meanwhile, The View itself was at a crossroads. The departure of one of its most controversial and recognizable figures left a gaping hole in its lineup. Would the show be able to recover and move forward, or would this scandal prove to be a breaking point for the long-running talk show? ABC raced to contain the fallout, but the damage had already been done. Viewers, advertisers, and industry insiders were watching closely, waiting to see how the network would navigate one of its biggest scandals yet. Would The View emerge stronger, or was this just the beginning of an even bigger media shakeup that would reshape daytime television for years to come?